Given the huge energy needs, India and China are major importers of Iranian oil. Washington highlights India and China are major importers of Iranian oil. U.S. has asked all countries to stop oil imports from Iran. Move part of efforts by U.S. to isolate streams of Iranian funding. The U.S. has asked all countries, including India, to stop all oil imports from Iran by November, as it ruled out any exemption to India and Indian companies from its reimposed Iranian sanctions regime for them carrying out any transaction with Iran. On China and India, yes, certainly, a State Department official told reporters when asked if the U.S. has told all countries, including India and China, to stop all their imports of Iranian oil by November 4. He said Indian and Chinese companies would be subject to the same sanctions as those in other countries. Given the huge energy needs, India and China are major importers of Iranian oil. There, India and China companies will be subject to the same sanctions that everybody else is if they engage in those sectors of the economy that are sanctionable, where there were sanctions imposed prior to 2015. And yes, we will certainly be requesting that the oil imports go to zero. Without question, the State Department official said, on condition of anonymity. Responding to questions, the official said these countries should start reducing the import of oil from Iran now and bring it to zero by November 4. Without question, they should be reduced. That's what we've been telling them in our bilateral meetings. They should be preparing, now, to go to zero by November 4, the official said. The official said this is part of the Trump administration's effort to isolate streams of Iranian funding and are looking to highlight the totality of Iran's malign behavior across the region. We remain engaged with the EU3 throughout this process, and we are going to continue to branch out in new countries and reach new partners as the weeks go forward, the official said. As such, this could emerge as a major topic of discussion between India and the US during the first 2-2 dialogue next week. External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj and Defense Minister Nirmala Sitharaman would be in the U.S. next week for talks with their American counterparts, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Defense Secretary James Mattis. The State Department asserted that there would be no waivers under the new sanctions regime. I would be hesitant to say, zero waivers ever. I think the predisposition would be, no, we're not granting waivers, the official said. Putting that America's allies are aware of its concern, the official claimed these countries want to work with the U.S. I don't want to get into the substance of each discussion I've had, but, for a vast majority of countries, they are willing to adhere and support our approach to this because they also view it as a threat. And it's gotten worse since 2015, not better, on the regional activity side, the official said. In a recent report, the Bipartisan Congressional Research Service (CRS) said as international sanctions on Iran increased in 2010 to 2013, India sought to preserve its long-standing ties with Iran while cooperating with the sanctions regime. In 2010, the Reserve Bank of India ceased using a Tehran-based regional body, the Asian Clearing Union, to handle transactions with Iran. In January 2012, Iran agreed to accept India's local currency, the rupee, to settle nearly half of its sales to India. During 2011 to 2015, India reduced its purchases of Iranian oil at some cost to its own development in order to receive from the U.S. administration exemptions from sanctions. India has increased oil purchases from Iran to nearly pre-2012 levels after sanctions were lifted, and in May 2016 India agreed to transfer to Iran about $6.5 billion United States dollars that it owed for Iranian oil shipments but which was held up for payment due to sanctions. The report said, India's position has generally been that it will only enforce sanctions authorized by UN Security Council resolutions, rendering it likely that India will resist U.S. efforts to compel it to comply with reimposed U.S. sanctions such as those that mandate cuts in oil purchases from Iran, said the CRS report.